Following his conviction for the murder of businesswoman Monica Kimani, Joseph Irungu, also known as Joey, has been sentenced to death.
Joseph Kuria Irungu alias Joey shall suffer death as provided for the offense of murder,
sparking renewed discussions on the death penalty in Kenya. Also tonight, the Azimio la Umoja coalition is calling for the immediate resignation of Health CS Susan Nakhumicha due to perceived failure in averting an impending doctor strike.
If the Health Cabinet Secretary is not able to make the National Treasury release funds for a critical ministry like hers, then she has no option but to quit, really.
Radio 47 under Cape Media commemorates 1 year of dominance on the airwaves, marking a significant milestone in its broadcasting journey.
Ni kutoa tu ahadi kwamba tutarajie mambo makubwa mwaka huu wa pili, na tunakwenda kuvuruga hata zaidi, na tunapania kuwa kituo nambari 1 katika taifa la Kenya.
All right, that and much more as we delve into the news for the night. Of course, you can engage with us on our Twitter at TV47KE. Of course, you can also join us on Facebook at TV47 News. You can get me at Hibak Said. And of course, tonight, my name is Hibak Said. And on the sign language interpretation tonight is Rhoda Nyamai. To start us off, Joseph Irungu alias Joey, who was last month found guilty of the murder of Monica Kimani on the night of September 19th, 2018, has been handed the death sentence. Justice Grace Nzioka ruled that the prosecution had adduced adequate evidence and proved beyond reasonable doubt that Joey indeed killed Monica. Kisewa Emery opens our bulletin tonight.
Finally, a conclusion made. 6 years after the brutal murder of Monica Kimani, Joseph Irungu, alias Joey, has been sentenced to death after he was found guilty of the crime.
That the first accused person before this court being Joseph Kuria Irungu alias Joey shall suffer death as provided for the offense of murder.
Delivering the verdict, High Court Judge Grace Nzioka ruled that the horrific murder of Monica Kimani was intentional. The Lady Justice also highlighted submissions from both parties and even investigators, some of which praised Joey's character, but some which called into question his personality.
The investigating officer, Mr. Maxwell Otieno, is indicated in the report as having described the accused person as an extremely dangerous person, violent in nature, as demonstrated by the fact that he was involved in an assault case with one Rogers at Club 1824 when he was out on bond in this matter.
The judge focused on the effects the case had on the family of Monica Kimani, who was the sole breadwinner for her family. The ruling caused different reactions from both families, with the family of Monica Kimani expressing joy after the judgment.
Wameshukuru sana. We are very, very grateful that justice has been done.
Monica's brother, however, lamented that it would still be hard to move on without his sister.
Yes, we are satisfied. Now what we are looking forward to is how to move on with everything and maybe find closure. Yeah.
Joey's mother, however, has insisted on her son's innocence.
Me, I believe my son is innocent. Na hajafanya kazi yoyote, kosa yoyote, hajaua. Kuna kitu ninaamini, kuna a God of a second chance. Na atamtoa. Na ndio unaona niko na nguvu sababu Mungu mwenye ninaamini ndiye atamtoa. He is like Joseph. Joseph alidhulumiwa hivi na Mungu baadaye alimtoa.
Now with Joey's sentencing, after being in and out of the courts for more than 6 years, the family of Monica Kimani can finally have some closure in this case. Kisewa Emory reporting for TV47 at Milimani Law Courts, Nairobi.
Thank you, Emory. On the same note, High Court Judge Grace Nzioka Wednesday sealed Joseph Joey Irungu's fate by handing him the death sentence over the murder of businesswoman Monica Kimani in 2018. The ruling, giving new jurisprudence to the Francis Muraitetu and Wilson Mwangi appeal against the state over the death penalty. Moige William takes a dive into the Nzioka ruling that cited the 2017 Supreme Court ruling that declared mandatory death sentence unconstitutional, as provided for under Section 204 of the Penal Code, but not affecting the validity of the death sentence under Article 26 of the Constitution. Just what guided Justice Nzioka.
In the sentencing to death of Joseph Irungu at the Milimani Law Courts Wednesday by High Court Judge Grace Nzioka, the prosecution side cited the Francis Muraitetu case of 2015, where it stated that despite the decision in the case of Muraitetu, the death sentence is not unconstitutional. Nzioka saying that the matter, which was before the Supreme Court, only declared that the mandatory nature of death sentence is unconstitutional and not the sentence itself.
Sentence provided for the offense of murder, which sentence is stipulated under Section 204, which says that a person convicted of the offense of murder shall suffer death.
The ruling by Nzioka has been supported by Advocate Seth Ojenda, a senior law lecturer at Mount Kenya University School of Law.
But again, in the sentencing policy, Justice, the judge has really given an insight, very intelligent insight.
In the Muraitetu Mwangi case, which Justice Nzioka numerously cited during the sentencing of Irungu, 2 murder suspects had been handed the death sentence for the murder of businessperson Lawrence Gidenji Magondu, and the wanted mandatory death sentence as set out in the Section 204 of the Penal Code, removed by the Kenya law, arguing that it was unconstitutional. The two also wanted indeterminate life sentence be declared unconstitutional.
Despite the decision in the case of Muraitetu, the only thing that case did was to declare, and I will put it clearly, that the mandatory, and I will repeat, the mandatory nature of the death sentence is unconstitutional.
Irungu was granted 14 days to appeal the sentencing. The ruling further raises questions into the death sentence in the country, even as Section 204 of the Penal Code is seen by law experts to be inconsistent with Article 26(3) of the Constitution, which states that a person shall not be deprived of life intentionally, except to the extent authorized by this Constitution or other written law. The Supreme Court later guided the Office of the Attorney General on the interpretation.
And even the Muraitetu case itself, it was left that in the guidelines itself that yes, it is not outlawed per se, but now the court will be guided discretionarily by the policy while meting out sentences.
The Grace Nzioka ruling now gives a new shred of jurisprudence to the Supreme Court ruling to the Muraitetu appeal, despite the same court directing the Speakers of the National Assembly and the Senate, the Reforms Commission, the Attorney General, and the Kenya law to attend with a signal of utmost urgency for any necessary amendments, formulation, and enactment of statute law to give effect to their judgment on the mandatory nature of the death sentence and the parameters of what ought to constitute life imprisonment, but that is yet to happen. Moige William, TV47.
Thank you, Moige, for those insights. Moving on, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition has ordered for the resignation of Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakhumicha, citing delay in responding to the doctors' demands. This is according to National Assembly Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi, who says that if the CS cannot liaise with the Treasury to release funds for the healthcare workers on time, then she can as well resign. The Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union has since issued a strike notice effective midnight, saying the government shows lack of commitment to resolving the issues of concern.
In the next few hours, Kenyans across the country in need of important health care will suffer a major blow following the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union declaration to down their tools effective midnight.
Clock ticks midnight, past 1 minute. I encourage all of you to join the liberation movement in a way that only you have shown us in the past the best way you can do it. Where callous hands holds another callous hands. As we do it, let us sing to the thunderous roar of a freedom song.
According to KMPDU Secretary General Davji Atela, the union's members have no option but to take the no-return route after 2 meetings of trying to solve the puzzle regarding their demands failed to come up with anything substantive, especially for those that did not require any funding.
We are persuaded to believe that our government is just too unwilling 7 years later. What of the beautiful infrastructure that we've seen come up? What of the well-known white elephants that have sunk taxpayers' money in the black holes of corruption?
Among the demands that the union wants addressed includes salary increment, promotions, medical insurance cover, postgraduate fee payment, study leave, and justice to the Secretary General of Union, Dr. Davji Atela, who was shot during a peaceful protest held on February 29 this year. At the same time, a section of Azimio La Umoja leaders led by the National Assembly's Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi has ordered for the resignation of Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakumicha, citing delay in responding to the doctor's demands.
If the Health Cabinet Secretary is not able to make the National Treasury release funds for a critical ministry like hers, then she has no option but to quit, really.
The Health Cabinet Secretary had earlier dismissed KMPDU's demands as being unrealistic, saying the ministry hands were tied regarding to the posting of medical interns. Anastasia Mkabi, TV47.
Thank you, Anastasia. Parliament is tomorrow expected to debate and approve amendments to the National Government Coordination Act 2013 to legalize the return of President William Ruto's chief administrative cabinet secretaries. In the new proposal approved by the National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, the number of cases has now been capped at 22 to tame a bloated public wage bill. And as Apollo Kamau reports, the CASs might soon start answering questions in Parliament.
After 8 months in the cold, President William Ruto's chief administrative secretaries are set to make a comeback if Parliament approves a raft of amendments to the National Government Coordination Act of 2013 on Thursday, legalizing their return after they were declared unconstitutional by the court. The National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee recommends the CSs as necessary, while recommending the number be capped to 22 to avoid a bloated public wage bill.
The amendment will pave way for setting certain minimum requirements that will guide the president in appointing a CAS. And you have seen the report, and they have said, for example, a CAS must have a minimum of a bachelor's degree.
The approval of the amendments means President William Ruto will have to reduce his initial appointees of 50 CSs, who will also be required to have a degree and experience of having served in government. In case they are approved, the CSs will represent their respective cabinet secretaries in Parliament to field questions, according to one of the amendments.
In the amendment, we will ensure that it is their role to appear before Parliament, and in particular committees of Parliament, to explain policy directives of a certain ministry or a certain department.
The JLAC report approving the return of the CSs was however opposed by Rarieda MP Otiende Amolo, who is a member of the JLAC committee, arguing that their duties were a duplication of cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries. Apol Kamau, TV47.
Thank you, Apollo Kamau. 8 months in the cold is quite apt. President William Ruto has told United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken that Kenya will take leadership of the UN Security Support Mission in Haiti in order to restore peace and security after the formation of the Presidential Council in Haiti. As Paul Kirobi now reports, this comes 2 days after the resignation of the Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry, the head of the Caribbean nation.
One day after Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry tendered his resignation as the head of the Caribbean nation, President William Ruto had a conversation with the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on issues pertaining security in Haiti. The head of state, in a snippet conversation via phone call, alluded that shortly after the formation of a new presidential council, whose main objective will be to manage the situation in Haiti, Kenya will be taking up the leadership of the UN Security Support Mission in Haiti to restore peace and security. Henry's resignation comes as regional leaders met earlier on Monday in nearby Jamaica to discuss the framework for a political transition, which the US urged last week to be expedited while gangs called for Henry to step down. Earlier on, regional officials were engaged in talks involving members of Haiti's political parties, private sector, civil society, and religious groups aimed at establishing the transitional council that will pave the way to the first election since 2016. With allegations that many Haitians consider Henry as corrupt, he had repeatedly postponed elections, saying security must first be restored. The new council has been mandated to swiftly appoint an interim prime minister, and anyone who intends to run in Haiti's next elections will not be able to participate. Paul Kirobi, TV47.
Now, the cabinet has endorsed measures that the government has taken in the fight against illegal brews and narcotic drugs. The measures announced by the Interior Ministry include a 21-day suspension of all the 52 licenses and permits issued to manufacture and distillers of second-generation alcohol, revocation of all bar licenses issued by counties against the law, and an audit of conflict of interest within the ranks of enforcement agencies. Now, the cabinet resolved that any public official who resists these measures against the fight against illicit brews and drugs will be violating Chapter 6 of the Constitution and the laws on conflict of interest.
To get involved in an extraordinary meeting in Denmark or someplace. And when you have that opportunity, all of us should be available. Let me also request you, as members of this, to get involved in
Moving on, the Shakahola Massacre case hearing was on Wednesday disrupted after the main suspect, Paul Mackenzie, refused to appear before Magistrate Leah Juma at the Shanzu Law Courts in Mombasa, where terror-linked charges have been filed against him and 94 other co-suspects. The court has ordered that Mackenzie be carried through a mental assessment test before the case is to be heard again on the 26th of this month.
Controversial preacher Paul Mackenzie had declined to appear before court on Wednesday, where his complaints were to be heard and addressed. The cult leader, who allegedly got involved in the deaths of hundreds of his church followers, decried discrimination during custody at the prison, claiming that he has recently been barred from interacting with his counterparts or even getting closer to them. His lawyer, Wycliffe Makasembo, had to intervene when Mackenzie finally accepted to appear before Magistrate Leah Juma at the Shanzu Law Courts in Mombasa. While addressing Mackenzie's allegations, the prosecution had claimed that Mackenzie's separation from his co-accused is due to fears of radicalization that has recently been witnessed, especially when the suspects went on a hunger strike, therefore disrupting the court proceedings. The request by the 95 suspects to the court calling for their release on bail terms was, however, rejected, with the judge issuing further orders, including their extended custodial period. In addition, Paul Mackenzie is to undergo a mental health assessment test before the case is mentioned once again on 26th of March 2024. Paul Munio, TV47, Mombasa.
Right. Organizations under the Kenya Media Sector Working Group now say that they are concerned about the undermining of media freedom in the country. Speaking in Nairobi, the stakeholders have expressed their worry on the infringement of freedom to access of information by citizens. Now, they have added that repression of the media will only infringe on the rights of journalists in the country. They have further called upon media stakeholders both within and outside the country to ensure their rights of journalists and the media as a whole are upheld, adding that journalists should not be discouraged but rather continue with their work.
Mbona hakuna shirika lingine ambalo limewekwa chini ya Bill of Rights? Ni kwa sababu kila Mkenya ana haki ya kupata habari wakati wowote, na habari hizo atazipata kupitia vyombo vya habari. Hivyo huwezi kubagua vyombo vya habari na kwenda kinyume na katiba na masharti ambayo yamewekwa kwenye mikataba ambayo Kenya imetia saini bila mashauriano na bila hata kuyashirikisha mashirika mengine. Vyombo vya habari ni haki ya kimsingi ambayo imewekwa kwenye katiba ambayo ndio sheria kubwa humu nchini inayostahili kuheshimiwa, kwamba ni lazima watii uhuru wa vyombo vya habari na watii haki ya Wakenya ya kupata habari bila kubaguliwa.
We are seeing a trend that if we don't speak up, we are likely to have more problems in Kenya as far as media freedom is concerned. You can remember that last year we didn't perform well on the World Press Freedom Ranking as a result of different matters that came up in Kenya. And that is why the Kenya Media Sector Working Group found it necessary to sit and draft a comprehensive statement looking at different policy interventions and what they mean. Because sometimes you wonder what goes in the minds of people who come up with these policies without looking at what are the implications of these policies.
Now to news much closer to home here at Cape Media. Radio 47 has today celebrated a 1-year anniversary since it started airing its programs in March last year. Presenters encountered, or rather recounted, how the journey was since the 13th of March 2023 when the station was established. They have congratulated the listeners and acknowledged the management in general for the milestones that the station's programs manager Linda Oriaso, radio manager Geoffrey Mungou, and the group editorial director Masharia Wamugo both gave assurance on more plans to improve the station's listenership.
Ladies and gentlemen, 1 year down the line, Chamber is on its way to becoming the biggest late night radio show. And I can only be grateful to Bwana Mungao, Mam Linda, Madam Lillian, Mr. Mbogwa, for trusting the other side. Now I was telling guys, I'm now rebranding. I'm not even calling myself a comedian anymore.
And may the Lord establish the works of your hands. And that is our prayer leo hii tunaposhukuru Mwenyezi Mungu kwa sababu ametufikisha mwaka mmoja, ataendelea kututhibitisha, ataendelea kutupatia uzuri wake. Na wakati ambapo uzuri wa Mwenyezi Mungu uko juu yako, you cannot be resisted.
Mpaka kwa hivi sasa mimi nimejikuta kwamba ni mtangazaji wa Radio 47, radio ambayo ni kubwa zaidi hapa nchini Kenya kwa hivi sasa.
We love being here. I think we support each other pretty well. Every team here, thank you so much.
Kwa hivyo support ni kubwa katika management na pia staff, na tunahisi kwamba tuko nyumbani, na shukrani za dhati kwa wasikilizaji wetu. Manake ndio umetufanya kuwa kidedea, manake wanatusikiliza na wamekubali kwamba Radio 47 ni kituo ambacho ni bora na ni bonge la radio, na ni kutoa tu ahadi kwamba tutarajie mambo makubwa mwaka huu wa pili, na tunakwenda kuvuruga hata zaidi, na tunapania kuwa kituo nambari 1 katika taifa la Kenya.
So on behalf of the board once again, na wahakikishia kwamba kutakuwa na support ya kila kitu ambacho tunataka kufanya, ndio Radio 47 itambe na tuzidi kuwakilisha wananchi popote pale walipo. 26 frequencies, and I know Mungou very soon you are going to hit the other one, is very good. So tunasikika mahali kote nchini Kenya. Kwa hivyo tunawakilisha wa Kenya popote walipo. To our audience, stay tuned and wait for even better content. Hapa ndipo.
na iendelee kuvuma. Happy birthday, Radio 47. Moving on, Cooperative Bank and Isuzu East Africa have announced a new asset financing scheme designed to help schools and businesses that desire to own buses and commercial vehicles. Under the new improved deal signed today, schools will enjoy 100% financing, while businesses will access 95% financing from the Cooperative Bank. Under the new deal also, the repayment period has been extended from 60 months to 72 months, giving businesses grappling with increased loan servicing costs and reduced cash flows space for flexible repayments. Now the deal covers Isuzu N Series, Isuzu F Series, and Isuzu Pickups and TFR Series. Cooperative Bank Managing Director Gideon Muriuki said the grace period that has been extended will be for servicing the loan, and the option for a working capital loan will assist educational institutions and businesses acquire the critical assets they acquire or they require within their current financing abilities.
As a bank, we have come up with very tailor-made solutions for asset financing and leasing to address all the sectors of the economy. In less than a decade, we have supported over 10,000 commercial vehicles with our asset finance, and we've bundled those financing with our working capital to take care of the business operational needs. We put together 1 billion shillings to disburse to the finance matatus from the existing SACCOs, as Kangangi mentioned, and companies. A lot of those SACCOs are actually our clients, so we'll be doing more with them, and we have a very focused team, even within the Cooperative Bank. We have so far financed, through Isuzu East Africa, over 1,500 matatus.
When you have a deal, you shut up. I already have a deal, a good deal for that matter, for our customers from Coop Bank as well as CIC. So my responsibility is to go to the market with my colleagues to do the deal. It's been a wonderful partnership between Isuzu East Africa, Coop Bank, and CIC. The future of business, sitting here and engaging in this conversation, will strongly depend on collaborations.
Relationship or partnership has also supported a lot of growth in our business. When we started in